We're going to talk about First Class.
Okay, yeah, I was like, go over here.
Okay.
Oh, God, yeah.
Justin, get over here.
Yeah, sure, let me get in there.
Eric!
You have the chance to become part of something much bigger than yourself.
What do you know about me?
Everything.
Justin.
Oh, First Class.
It's time to talk about one of my favorite X-Men films, actually. Especially after the two that preceded it.
You mean the two that were really fucked up?
Yeah. The insults, as I call them.
Okay.
X-Men First Class. Which, as was brought up earlier, you know, they were trying to do X-Men Origins as kind of a sub-brand within X-Men, right? They weren't going to make X-Men Origins Magneto, right?
No, yeah, they weren't.
They weren't. So they kind of incorporate
that.
it here, right? That whole origin story for not only Magneto, but also Professor X, and the whole idea of the X-Men. And this is a period piece also. It's set during the 60s and everything. So what do you think of the concept of First Class being set during not only the 60s, but the Cuban Missile Crisis? You get to see these characters younger.
Cuban Missile Crisis.
To tell you the truth, I really like it primarily because we get to see and get to know both Charles and Eric before they become their prominent roles within like this universe.
Yeah. Well, Brian, what about you? What are you thinking? Because this is a historical film dealing in a very specific point of history.
Oh, wow.
You know, the U.S. is putting military in Turkey at this point, upsetting Russia. Russia's putting their nukes in Cuba. Yeah, exactly. So what do you think about it? And you gotta get real close to Justin.
Oh yeah. So yeah, no, I love this film. I watched this film before I was a history major, and rewatching again, it's still enjoyable. I mean, the only thing that's inaccurate it's mutants. But yeah,
JFK was a mutant.
Honestly, no, this is a good film. I also love the stark contrast. I don't know if you guys talked about this yet, but the stark contrast between both Magneto's and Xavier's lifestyle. With one of them coming from poverty, coming from like a downtrodden like survivor, and the other one
in a concentration camp.
Yeah, and then the other one coming from a side of extreme wealth and class. And you could even look at that as a sense of like how people believing in different systems of like capitalism and communism, and who was in favor for which systems around that time. And that's what the Cold War was really looking about, the battles of Ho Chi Minh with America, battles between the Russians, and don't forget you have the Berlin Wall.
Yeah. Well, you have you made a great point about the opening of the film specifically. I love that we talked about this earlier, but they recreate the opening from the original film, where you see Magneto as a child being ripped away from his parents in Auschwitz. And for one thing, I love that they homage the first film in that way.
Oh yeah.
And but then you cut from there to the mansion in Westchester with Xavier and his family, and you see the stark difference. You understand the characters completely there, because in that film, Eric is being ripped away from his family, and you see in the mansion Xavier's kind of creating a family with Mystique, and it's like night and day in terms of the tones of both scenes, and they work really well together. They, especially because they're so contrasted. I love that.
You could say, right?
Yeah.
That Magneto lost his family, hence he was creating an environment for a new family, right? But with Xavier, he has a family,
Yeah.
but he's making room and accessibility for people who have no family.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
works well to why he meets Magneto.
Yeah.
He is someone who has no family, someone who has no one in this world, and they work together as brothers. They say that multiple times in the film because they truly love each other. It's just a division of power, and when it shows when all the world is at each them, that's when Magneto's like, oh, fuck, you know?
Yeah, well, what do you think of, Justin, what do you think of the idea of this movie being about both of them showing their differences and like pushing them together, but you know where it's going to end up? Like, what do you think of that?
It shows their human side.
Right.
Like it just shows like, hey, these guys, they're more human than everyone else that is human.
Yeah. So like the contempt that humanity has for the mutants is kind of ridiculous because at the end of the day they are people.
Yeah.
You know, which is brought up in the film plenty of times because mutants are only kind of a rumor at this point in the 60s. Like people don't know them.
But then the existence is revealed.
Revealed, yeah. It's like it's revealed to the government in this film, and then I love that in Days of Future Past it's revealed to humanity, to the public, exactly.
Peter Dinklage, I would vote for him.
Oh, right, yeah, I know you would. You're going to. And I love the formation of the team here. This movie obviously has a lot of camp to it, in a way that's fitting of the time. You know, they were inspired a lot by James Bond films in this film, especially with the Magneto character. Seeing him in Argentina hunting down Nazis and shit like that. That's a Bond film, right there.
Oh yeah,
it feels like James Bond. Like Michael Fassbender would be a perfect James Bond.
Oh yeah, totally.
And
the fact that he's not is fucking criminal.
You know what? We'll see it. If it happens, I don't know.
Or you're just Elbow.
That should have happened a while ago. Yeah. But I love that this film is very stylized. What did you think of this movie's feel? Because it's obviously very different from all the other films. In terms of tone, the way they're coming across as a team. What do you think of that?
First, Justin.
To tell you the truth, it's a really good beginning, especially when they're gathering more mutants.
Yeah.
And then those mutants, when they're exposed, you could see that, like, hey, you know what? I thought I was alone. It looks like I'm not alone. There's more people like me.
Yeah.
Obviously not with the same abilities, but
yeah,
people that are unique in my own way.
Yeah.
Like, okay, getting a little bit X-rated. Remember
X-rated?
Oh god.
X-Force rated.
Like, remember the scene with the stripper? She
Zoe Kravitz.
Yeah, there you go.
Angel.
Zoe Kravitz. When she is in there with Charles and Eric, she just assumed, okay, I'm just giving another lap dance for these guys. But then she sees, hey, what the hell? These guys are like me? And then she's like, oh, well, my turn. And then we see the pixie shit. I'm just like, oh, great, it's a fucking pixie.
And you were turned on.
No, I wasn't.
I was.
Brian was.
Yeah.
That's the closest to a goth baddie that Brian could see in the film.
You know what would be funny? If they were like, all right, we didn't come and hire you. Strip.
We didn't mean your powers. Yeah, that's if you were like Xavier. You just read into people's minds, violating their fantasies.
But then they randomly put in fucking Havoc. And then I'm just wondering, like, wait, is this X-Men or is this fucking X Factor?
Well, that's the thing, right? Is like they're being a little different. They're adapting the First Class in a way that fits the larger universe.
Darwin.
Yeah.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that because obviously the First Class in the comic books is Cyclops, Jean Grey, Iceman, Angel, and Beast. They weren't going to do that, especially if it is set in the 60s at this point. So they retrofit it. They bring in Mystique as one of the original members. They bring in Havoc, Banshee, which was really cool to see Banshee up in there.
It was cool to see Banshee.
Darwin, which kind of got the shaft
which
up in here.
Which would have been amazing.
Yeah,
But then they killed him off
we
so
had,
fucking
in a ridiculous
we had
way.
Steve Jobs, the villain, coming out of here. I'm the fire. I can
Kevin Bacon.
Yeah, Kevin Bacon.
As Sebastian Shaw. Who,
Everybody
are you going to be a slave?
Hey, adapt to this.
Well, see,
if he wanted to do that, he could have just been like fucking Green Goblin and said, back to formula.
You ready for this?
Let's find out.
Well, what did you guys think of the team? That team. Xavier, Magneto, Mystique,
Well, if you
Havoc,
think-
Banshee, Beast.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, both Eric and Charles, like they, took a moment to really understand all of them, including their powers, and really, did everything that they could to encourage them. Especially that scene with Eric and Charles, when Charles goes inside Eric's head and he sees the candles being lit and stuff like that.
That's my favorite scene.
Like
in the film.
he basically says, Eric, you're not so much of a monster that you think. You have real emotions that just everyone else has. Okay, try to be at least show a little bit of your human side. Show your vulnerability a little bit. That's what makes you more powerful, and that's something that you want to refrain from.
That's how you control the powers. That point between anger and serenity.
Yeah,
which that scene is wonderful.
That's a beautiful fucking scene.
They're lighting the menorah in his mind and everything, and and also James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender also as young versions of these characters are, in terms of casting, on the level of Sir Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen.
They're on the level.
You completely buy it, like that they could grow up into those versions of the characters.
Totally can,
Unfortunately, as the movies continue, they don't age.
Unfortunately,
it's the series where this section of the X-Men franchise is and they never age. Dude, it's a little funny there, but those guys are incredible. They sold it in this first movie.
Oh yeah,
as
they
their
did.
roles. Fassbender was born to play this role.
Oh yeah.
I want to ask you guys. This is related to the movie,
No.
but also to the MCU because we're kind of getting there with Deadpool and Wolverine, but. At some point, they're going to bring the X-Men into the MCU in the main timeline, right?
Oh, yeah.
They will be incorporated into the canon.
Kind of somewhat with Marvel, but let's ignore that.
What do you mean?
Well, they identified as what was her name? Kamala or whatever?
Oh, Miss Marvel.
Miss Marvel
Well,
as part mutant.
Well, yeah, the mutants are a thing, but what I mean is the X-Men themselves.
Oh, yeah.
The characters will
Let's
be
ignore
incorporated.
that movie on that show.
They'll be incorporated at some point. And here's the thing. I'm curious what you guys think. They brought back J. Jonah Jameson, played by J.K. Simmons, in the main MCU, right?
Oh yeah, they did.
Would you?
Spider-Man's a terrorist!
Would you mind, or would you be down if they had McAvoy and Fassbender as the MCU's X and Magneto?
I'll take it.
In the same way as J.K. Simmons as
Honestly,
J. Jonah Jameson.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
yeah,
Because
I
you know
could
what?
take it.
If anything they could do, I mean, ever since they did the multiverse stuff, and I've told you, I've kind of really hella lost interest in anything because it's just kind of feels like if anyone dies, it doesn't really matter because they'll just retcon and bring someone else back.
Yeah.
So if they bring them in as the main MCU, the primary universe, that's fine. Because then if they wanted to, they could just bring back the original to for another universe. I mean, they already brought back the original Xavier for
multiverse.
for multiverse. Yeah.
Well, I mean, in the main timeline, right? The sacred timeline, as it were. I would actually be okay if it was Fassbender and McAvoy because they're really good in the roles.
Yeah,
first
they
of all.
embody it really well.
Yeah, and they didn't have that send off. Stewart and McKellen had, with Dark Phoenix. Yeah, it just kind of ends in Dark Phoenix. And I would be totally okay if they really encapsulated the comic book versions of those characters because their performances warranted all the way back to this film was first class. You buy it completely. Justin, what do you think? Do you want to kind of elaborate on it?
To tell you the truth, I wouldn't mind, at all. However, I wouldn't mind, if we got, some new talent to fill in fill in those shoes. Because to tell you the truth, don't get me wrong, Fassbender and those guys, they're good. Okay, they killed it the first two movies. Okay,
yeah.
But
I think they kill it on all the movies. There.
Oh well, yeah, they did.
But some of the movies just suck. Go ahead.
But Marvel, they have a different agenda, especially when they told Ryan Reynolds don't bring in Hugh Jackman. Okay, no, don't. Like, they want to try new, like, talent, and that's something I would. I kind of like.
He's singing in the rain, Ryan. Let him do his theater.
Let him do his theater.
Go back to Oklahoma.
Yeah, go to Oklahoma, man.
Which he's really good at Oklahoma.
He is. He's incredible. I'd be down with it, man. At this point, you know, there have been all sorts. If Giancarlo cannot play Xavier, then I would prefer two guys who have played the roles before and play like almost upgraded versions in the MCU. You know,
Giancarlo. Wait, really, for Xavier?
Well, he was Giancarlo Esposito was like a fan favorite for Xavier. He wanted to play Xavier, but
Honestly, I could see that.
But he's already playing someone else.
Unfortunately,
he's in Captain America: Brave New World as someone else who's undisclosed. So it's obviously not Xavier. So.
But I could see that.
No, I could. He could see it. You know,
Yeah,
I'd be so down. But I would like these two just because they'd be older for one thing.
I want El Pollo Loco to cross the pen all mutants.
He goes up to Wolverine. Giancarlo's Xavier goes up to Wolverine and says, "You are simply bad product."
Simply bad product.
I do not like how you work. Your mutant came in here drugged up. I will not be working with you.
Well, First Class.
Starlight, you out of everyone else was the one I was most fond of.
Last words on First Class.
Homelander's just a
shut
child.
the fuck up. By the way,
all he needs is
shut up, bub. Speaking of which, one of the best cameos in the X franchise. Hugh Jackman. No, Hugh Jackman's Wolverine in this film.
Yeah.
His first time saying the F-bomb.
Mm-hmm. Go fuck yourselves.
Go fuck yourself. Yeah, amazing. Any last words on X-Men First Class before we move on?
It's a good film.
Yeah.
Very good. I mean, at first I feel like a lot of people were a little harsh with it because there was like such a big like change from the original ones and stuff like that, and this is when we were getting already into a little bit on understanding what the MCU was, and although it's not part of it,
was just starting at that point.
Yeah. I think people were a little afraid that it was going to be too comical in the sense that it was going to lose its authenticity like the original hero films, like Iron Man, or within the other X-Men films and stuff like that. But it's good. And also, there's I want to say one last thing. I love the stylistic change of color. And
actually have some yellow up in there.
Yeah, because it honestly represents really well within both the time frame and the historical context.
Yeah.
I think I remember watching something on the DVD thing where they were explaining that those suits represent, like, I think it was supposed to be, like, pre-training for astronauts going into space around that time. That's the suits that they wear during, those flight logs where they get hurled around for like 100-something miles.
Yeah.
That little thing. So I think that's a cool little reference with it. And also within the powers too, with everyone, it works well like a campy film because it's such 60s, 50s era of campiness, superhero kind of thing.
It's great. It's just great. And Matthew Vaughn is one of those filmmakers who's very stylized, works really well, is constantly working, and has vision. You know, so that's what I love about this film is that there is a vision to it.
Oh yeah.
And that's one thing I'll say about the X-Men films as a franchise is that not all of them are perfect, but most of the time they've retained the director's vision for the characters, whereas something like DC you know has had a lot of trouble with that. You know, but the X-Men films a lot of the time stick to the types of films they are.
Yes, you do.
Well, Justin, any last words on First Class?
Let's move on to the next one.
Okay.
because I'm hyped for this one.
Okay, well then.